Welcome to Crystal Sage Wisdom with the Perez Sisters.
Saludos. Soy Alex, and this is.
Los Angeles Perez.
And we haven't guessed already, we're sisters. But we're a little bit more than that, right? Like, we've been business partners, we've been great friends, just co-partners for many capacities, and
Troublemakers together.
she's even my komai, she's my child's godmother, so we have like all these like tiers.
You know what that means? That we can't get rid of each other no matter what. Imagine if we didn't like each other, it would be a hard thing because now we're working together, we do activism together, we're blood related.
We kind of I can't cancel her is what she's trying to say, and she can't cancel me. So we have to figure it out along the way, even if and when, we hit a wall. But in all honesty, most of the time we have we have a pretty great flow with one another, despite the fact that we're just very, very different humans in many capacities.
This is the truth. And it has been my sister who has been one of the people that has understood how to hold space the most for personalities like me in this world who may be a bit loud, intense, and obnoxious. She understands that everybody's different. Everybody expresses themselves different. And sometimes one has to accept that that person might just be a natural, fiery, bodied human being. But that doesn't mean that anyone is entitled or it's okay for you to be throwing your fire to other human beings, because that hurts.
That's true. That's not always appropriate. Sure. Sometimes we all got to let out some steam, right? It comes out. Sometimes we don't even feel like we can control it in certain situations, but it's never necessarily like a justification to just be like, bueno, I was angry and you just had to take it. Like,
And we've
that's not
never done
always
that
okay.
with each other.
Yeah.
Any tidbits that we've had as sisters have always been maybe about just being stubborn in certain viewpoints and maybe staying there. And then also learning that even though my sister seems to be the more chilled, passive one, she's got her own fuego
Yeah.
that burns in a whole different way.
It's like, I think what life has taught us with each other's close relationship, but also working with so many people for so many years and different characters. Exactly what she said. Everybody does have fuego. Everybody, even the person that you would think is the sweetest, lightest, gentlest person. Everybody has their own type of fire. It just comes out differently. I feel like it has a lot to do with just the way you're wired, and your sign may influence it. Some fire may be more icy. Maybe the way somebody's gonna come show you their emotion is more of a energetic and more energetically. It may not be verbal, it may not be explosive, so it's like,
Absolutely. Some people communicate their fire and they haven't said a word. I remember we did a tabling event in Queens somewhere, City Field maybe. If memory strikes me correct.
Is it the world one? The world something?
What great memories we have. It was pre-2020. Anyway, I met a woman in there who jumped into, those humans who just love to jump into discussions that nobody invited them. So I was having a discussion with somebody who learning about their business, and we just chit-chatting away, and she overheard something that we were talking about, and she just jumped into the discussion. And the moment she heard something that she didn't like and she was triggered by, I could feel the energy shift within her. So even though she was communicating in cadence with politeness, and even though it was polite cadence, but it was of contrast. She didn't agree with what the other two people, including me, were speaking about. And when she shifted and she realized that we weren't in agreement with her, she just shifted into this frequency that when I felt it, my legs started shaking uncontrollably and I couldn't stop it. I had never experienced anything like that. And I hadn't even had my cafecito.
Also, you weren't even like, you didn't even have your battle gear on at that point before you were already blasted with this vibe. But isn't it interesting, right, that you felt such a intensity on a physical level despite the fact that she hadn't raised her voice?
Because everybody could
The
disagree.
explosion.
But one of the things that my sister and I we spend a lot of time talking about with our community is the importance of looking at your emotional patterns and being okay with them. So as I was growing up, I was always very kind of not surprised to anyone, the more dramatic and expressive one. And I was growing up in a family that wanted to control all of my creative desires in some circumstances or inspirations or it provoked fear in them. And if you think about it, creativity is a certain kind of fire, right? It's the fire that is coming, this beautiful connection that's coming to you that you are in tune with, and everybody works it differently. But it's like the birth, right? You're co-creating this thing. And so out there in real time, a lot of people are expressing neutral fire. Some of it is rifle fire. Some of it is I want to jump into this bochincha train fire, right? Because there's a lot of bochincha happening.
Radical change in all the areas,
And
right? These days.
think about an area, right? Like obviously we'd be stupid if we didn't mention in the music industry. Caliente,
Hip hop está caliente.
muy caliente. Ooh, and that entices people to want to share and participate in that fire.
Right, right.
But while all of that is happening, there's this beautiful like energy that is inviting us to tap into this creative fire that is delicious, is rebirth, is spring. And I've been thinking that many of what we're seeing is a distraction to keep you and I, all of us, away from exploring that connection deeper. And to be honest, when it was 2020 and everybody was grounded pretty much worldwide and shocked into going inside, some of the messages were
To stop.
to stop, don't explore nature, don't be with nature, don't go to the beach. They locked parks, right?
Beaches, I mean, all over the place.
Everything. And
Yeah, gyms, right? People couldn't do classes. You couldn't.
I saw people having tantrums because people were in the park on a nice day during the 2020 pandemic era.
Yeah, I committed the crime of being in the park without a mask.
Oh my God.
You know,
Why would you want to be in the park with a mask on?
right? Because honestly, I can't speak for anyone else. Why was Alex out in el parque walking? Because, well, I always love to be around nature. It's something, if you know me, you know that love to get to it, whether it's a pier or a tree at some point as consistently as possible. I've done that for as long as I could remember. I know that it helps to relax me. I know that I feel peaceful. I know that I work on my breath and my presence. There's so much that happens. It's so great for my health, mind, body, and soul. So here we were in the middle of this 2020 craziness. And I don't know, but I was thinking for myself, bueno, I'm going to continue doing the practices that have helped maintain my health, mind, body, and soul. So I'm thinking I'm getting my vitamin D3, I'm getting my exercise, I'm getting to nature, I'm continuing. I wasn't changing anything. I'm continuing what I've already learned is actually really great for my health. And all of a sudden, I was being told, and we were all being bullied to submission, that all of that was wrong to do for your health. So when you were saying pause, like, when the world paused, like they didn't want you just pause. It was almost like they just didn't want you to live. It's like everything about life and living stopped.
They
But
didn't even want you to think if you thought about it.
right, because even that was considered bueno. How
I mean,
dare you?
was it one of the news reports about like be careful for those people online telling you to research? I couldn't believe that. And during those times too, seemingly unrelated, but there were also discussions about how dare such and such demand loyalty from his team. Like, think about these are bedrocks of relationship building, of being in a community, of living in wholeness and wellness. It's this interlocking of we're all here in this together. And everything that was pushed, the propaganda of going against nature. And here we are, urban medicine women in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, with roots of, Christianity and having a mom who's very devoted, faithful, and still
Still,
to this day, right? And then having an awareness of the Bible and all that stuff, and just what do you do when you have to put the tools you've been practicing into actual practice?
right.
Because a lot of people just got so stunned.
A lot of, well, I think if we're going to be specific, like you mentioned urban medicine people, like at that time we had our brick and mortar crystal metaphysical shop, botanical in Brooklyn. And so we had a responsibility to our community, a role. We had been working all these years on being of support from different capacities. And yes, that's an excellent point. Like we were all put to that test. Like, all right, so are you going to walk your talk? Meaning, how are you going to handle that? How were we supposed to handle that chaos? How were you going to handle that chaos? And obviously, we all can look back now and we know those answers, right? Everybody did different things. We all know people that caved in, they ran immediately, and maybe it's many different reasons, fear, overwhelm, whatever it was, but some ran and they hid, you know. Others were like, I'm going to continue as I am. This is my time to step up and just do the best that I can. And then you had everybody in between, right? The in the spectrum, um but I feel like one thing that we realized within our community, um there was that we all get the world kept using that word essential worker, right? Almost like another tactic to make you feel like,
And
to segregate and to make you feel like, well, you're not necessary. Whatever you did in this world, you weren't necessary, right?
how horrible is that?
And that was such a like psychological, like
Demonic.
that was so horrible, and that played a role in many people, right? And how they move forward and how they saw themselves and their place at that time. But I feel like one of the things that we saw within our community almost immediately was this need for what we provided within our space at our shop and for our community. And if anything, even more of an appreciation of what had always been there,
Yeah.
right? People started to realize, wait a second, in these crazy times of instability, I realized, like, I really love the community that we have there, or I really love the products you guys sell there, or I really love that the conversations that we have within this space, or I really love the way I can feel, you all can help to make me feel grounded, or to help me decipher what to maybe focus on. You know, it was different for different people, but all of a sudden we were able to see, wait a second, more than ever, our role really began now. It was almost like all those years we were really just preparing, you know, under
Yeah.
this apprenticeship and in the middle of this worldwide
Yeah, because God gave
instability.
us that vision years ago
Yeah.
to 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 build community. And what was surprising to us was how many people in our inner circle really were trying to talk us away from it. Like, why are you wasting your time trying to do community events? Because, hey, we didn't know what was coming, but we knew something was coming.
Mhm.
It didn't take a genius to just see how even us talking through these devices have separated us. It doesn't take a genius to see that social media has programmed people into experiencing euphoria when they discover a little nugget of truth, and then they want to go, see, I told you I was right. How does that feel? Like, once in a while, maybe, but nobody loves to hear that in that cadence. He's right. Well, okay, great. You are apparently right about 100 things in this world, and there's no space for us to where to does that, if I'm always right, does that give you an opportunity, or does that make you feel like you can talk to me if I'm always saying I'm right? I'm right again about this. Oh.
First of all, for people who like to say that, it doesn't necessarily inspire anyone to want to, even if you are right,
Yeah.
it's not going to attract people to want to like be around that. You know, that's almost like, remember that word you used in last week's episode? You, in our last chat, you used the word repellent. My sister, we're talking about how we do things that repel people. Yeah, that's another behavior I would add onto how we can repel people sometimes, whether we're realizing it or not, you know, with our own behaviors.
And hey, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I suffer from I'm right syndrome, laugh at yourself. Like, that's how
Good
you can,
point.
this is how you can heal. I call people wokey pokies. Meaning, you're so woke and you know everything that maybe you don't know much. Because part of why we're here is to learn how to communicate and build relationships with ourselves and with other people. And if you do not like the company you keep, how can you attract somebody? If you have stinky, funky attitude, if you have resting bitch face and you don't know it, well, how might you know? Like, well, look at yourself in the mirror. Where are your lines? Are you always like, and there's plenty to be upset about.
Or just regular stress,
Mhm.
you know, like
Regular stress.
sometimes just your regular day-to-day stress will have you walking around a
We're
certain way
resting bitch
and you
face.
don't realize it, but then from your within you, you could be in your like, oh my God, all this, all this. From the outside, it's like, you know, people read things differently, you know,
Listen, I suffer from resting bitch face, especially if you ever see me
not just bitch face, but resting bitch face.
resting bitch
Oh
face,
my
especially
God, that's
if you see me on a hot summer sunny day. I could have walked the block, and I'm walking like I've walked 1,000 miles under torturous desert conditions,
Oh yeah.
and it could be just a block, and I look upset.
She's like, get out of my way.
Get out my
Out my
way!
way.
I
I
need an
need
air
to get to
conditioner.
I need to get to shade. I need to get to better temps. Yeah.
Right, and okay, that's one way that I manage my fire. Like, I know that if I get too hot, I need to acknowledge it. It could be because I physically get too hot in my body, because of outside weather conditions, or because something triggers me and I get really hot in my body. In this journey, in this hot-blooded skin that I've always lived in, there's been a couple of epiphanies. One is, this is who I am. I've tried everything in my life to play different roles because, it's uncomfortable for people sometimes, right? To have somebody who's an explorer, always curious or pondering, or whatever. But then you come to a place where you're like, but this is who I am. And maybe those people who I irritate are not my tribe. So then you go to where you're celebrated.
Well, let me ask you a question because, um, my sister, if you don't know, or I don't know if you mentioned, is an Aries, and I'm not trying to say that your birth sign is literally just exactly who and what you are. But these things are actually a science, and there's real truth to some of these elements.
Influences by the planetas.
Yeah, and but yeah, when in this world, oftentimes when people hear that, oh my God, in Aries, there's
We have
almost
such
like
a
that.
bad reputation.
Why do you think Aries are seen with almost that, like, oh, like people kind of freak out, or they kind of go like this? Why do you think that follow? And to be fair, I'm calling out Aries right now because we're talking. She's my sister, but every sign has that. Every sign has those couple things that we're all like, ooh, you know. Because Pisces, we a whole other special type of special.
I will say this. Um, I think that what people may not understand about people who are similar to my type in character is that we live for the thrill of the moment. We want to be in the present moment. And one of the hardest things to stomach is to be in front or with people who are always just judging of the past. It feels like nails on a chalkboard to us. And so when you're always constantly, and we grow up in communities, and we've grown up in communities with families and friends that live in the I world. And there's only so much I this body can handle. And then you just snap, and then you just start not being mean, but just sort of cutting through the chase, right? And also too, I've been trained in production. And my bosses, when I try to be like, hi, I just want to get you with an update, blah, 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 blah. They used Aries tactics to communicate. Give it to me fast. I don't have a lot of time. And if you're in your feels, you might think that the boss is mad at you, and cut to that ruins your day. But if you understand we're in production and time is money, and I'm on this team,
Got to get going.
and this person is probably, I'm the 100th person that this person has spoken to. So you start kind of opening up your field. And so then in this relationship with my sister, uh, as she knows, for example, Aries do get bad reputations, right? Oh, you guys are so loud. Oh, you guys are just so direct. Oh, you guys are so insensitive. But there are some favorable things to our signs. We're very loyal, almost to a fault.
Yeah, I would actually say to a fault.
I may be one of the more loyal signs.
And just so you know, I have a lot of experience on Aries.
My sister does.
Yeah, like
She's an expert Aries.
I gave birth to one. Her father is one. I've had major Aries teachers in my life, and um, so you're from the outside, but yet being so close, you learn so much about Aries. So personally, for me, I've never felt that about Aries. Like, oh, I've never had that. Ugh. I think it's just because I've been around it so much. It's just kind of my norm. But I do understand why sometimes people are like, oh my God, the intensity. Yes, the truth is Aries can feel and be intense people, you know, and not just because loud, because not all Aries are loud, but you guys do tend to be intense people energetically. But the way you express it is differently.
Because when we're trying to be in the present moment and carrying that childlike exploration. Have you not seen children have the worst tantrums that you're like, oh my God, if a human adult did that, right? And then 2 seconds later, they're like done with it. And so people in my nature can just not everything, let things go a lot faster than most people. And then that has become a topic of many arguments in my lifetime. How did you just let go of this thing so quick? Didn't we talk about it? Didn't we squash it? Why do we have to keep talking about it over and over again? And that's when you get like Aries start to just cut through it, right? It's almost like we know we are born into this world with just a limited amount of time. So if we're gonna have a conversation, why we're just gonna keep only just talking about the past? There's so much to explore in the present moment. Let's have fun. If we have to have a serious discussion, let's talk about it. Do we need to talk about it for hours? It's almost one of the most torturous things that you can do to somebody like me. Oh my God.
I guess you're learning her pet peeves, huh?
You're learning my pet peeves. Now, in hindsight, and here's why, because those conversations deplete. They deplete people energetically. Anybody. When you are constantly talking to someone who's always complaining, and then and that one over there, those are conversations that drain the essence of your life force if you just keep opening up your field to receive them constantly. That doesn't mean that you negate that somebody needs to have a venting session, that somebody needs to have someone witness them because they're trying to work out something that maybe they experienced that's really raw, like a grief or trauma. Maybe they broke up with someone, maybe they lost something.
Maybe they're just having a bad day.
That's human nature. Like if you have someone, like I'm so grateful that I have my sister who can listen. Now, if it's 2 weeks and I'm still talking about the same thing, and it's okay. Look, there's certain things that are harder to take over, but I'm not talking about big life things. Like when we're talking about the tiny, tiny things, like we know people that are still upset because somebody didn't bring them a straw when they ask. Well, every single time I ask you to bring me the right thing, you just don't do it. And it's like, well, maybe you're in the character. You choose to be upset all of the time. I want to enjoy life because life is hard.
And it has enough to manage. But we are here to learn.
Mhm.
And I feel like the things people, some of these elements about who we are and how we're wired, and we're using our sign just as a guiding post, but there's so many things that make up who we are, like mind, body, soul, energetics, your environment, your ancestral past. Like there's so many components to uh you are in this moment. So we're not, I just want to be clear, we're not just using the sign and saying that that's it, but it is a component of who we are, and we're working with it as a just to work with the intentional aspect of saying that, you know we're all wired a certain way, and that is not always going to be favorable to everybody and how we're wired. But what
Right.
we
Some
have
people are
learned,
natural pain in the asses all
right,
the time.
but what we have learned working with a lot of people is that, so often these favorable unfavorable components are needed in very specific situations. So perhaps in certain moments, somebody's behavior or character, you'd be like, oh God. But in the right situation, that person is the one that could absolutely know how to handle it, take care of it, nip it in the bud. Whereas maybe that wouldn't be what you're good at. So it's like we're all wired a certain way, and we all have our elements that, you know, are not very good looking all the time, but it's still a strength as well, because there's always going to be a situation where that part of you is going to be needed. However, that being said, we are here to learn. So
Mhm.
that means that we got to also look at these components about ourselves and figure out, okay, well, am I really playing nice with everybody? Am I, what do I have to learn? If I'm getting that type of reaction from people, what's the lesson in there for me? So it's a two-way thing, right? Like you're always having to make sure that you're checking in with yourself, because especially as an adult, like I like to do something called mirror therapy for myself. Like I like to look myself in the mirror, especially at night where there's no distraction, there's nobody, just me. And it's particularly if I'm going through something, I'm being challenged, that's when I do real talk with myself. That's when I'm like, all right, Alex, I'm bothered by that. Why? And part of that is also like making sure that I'm not the problem, or that, or how can I support or evolve from whatever challenge I'm in, or what am I contributing that's good, and what am I contributing that's making the problem worse? It's like we all have to get to that point where we're also looking at ourselves and our behaviors and the way we carry ourselves, and make sure that, first and foremost, we're figuring out, bueno, how am I contributing or not contributing? Like, ask yourself that, no
Right.
matter where you are, what situation, family, friends, job, because we're here to do both. We're here to be of support, but we're also here to learn, you know? And
And part of that is, when you start doing those reflections, you start accepting yourself
yeah,
and however it is that God made you and how you are in your body. And everybody has tweaks. And,
everybody,
every,
everybody.
right. Like, look, there's been, my sister's a Pisces, right? So they are, we realize that we are each other's greatest teachers because we are really great and strong in certain aspects, and we teach that to the other person. And we both have learned to hold space for that other perspective, for that other point of view, because it's always needed. So in my Aries body, I'm like rushing, 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 rushing. There's many times where she's like, enjoy the flowers, enjoy the moment. We'll get there on time, and then we do.
I'll be like, go sit. That's how
Look around.
sometimes when
Look
she's
around your
upset, go ground, But in turn, for us Pisces, we tend to be the opposite. We sometimes we lag too much. We overthink, or we're not taking action fast enough. And she's always loved to push me over that cliff throughout my life. It's like, "Nah, I think you should do it."
This is so funny. And shout out to Troy. Troy knows what I mean. Like, this is my medicine. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, she loves to do that, and she has done that to me my whole life. Okay, but
Especially
I
around
need
this medium.
but I need that teacher. I need that energy in my life because I'm all the way in the other spectrum. So like she said, we're in literal opposite spectrum. So on one angle, in one way, we're great teachers to each other, but also great challengers because of the way we're wired. So, we always have to keep that in mind. Working together as sisters within a business capacity, or just as regular sisters, we always have to keep those things in mind. Well, okay, understand that there's always going to be more than one solution to a situation. There's always going to be more than one way, but the way we do it is differently. But there are moments. So it's like on one level, we have to remember when we're working, especially with people that are very different, is that there is still more than one way to be successful. It just may not look the way you interpret it, right? But then the other way to keep in mind when you're working with people very closely that are very different is that, yeah, sometimes your fire or your strength has to push that other person, even in those moments that makes them uncomfortable, because it puts you in a position to grow, or to just build on a part of you that maybe you don't think that you would have built before. So the fact that I could sit here and like chat with you guys is a huge evolution for me, because I've been running from stuff like this, like always, but yeah, my sister has always been like, come on, I'll give you a mic, let's go over here. I mean, and not just from in so many different worlds and so many different communities. And
But
it has
even if I hadn't influenced you in the camera just by itself, because of the different communities that we have been a part of, there was my sister's little face on the live stream that went
so true.
live.
Everywhere we went, we would always be in a situation where there was a camera. So
I loved it.
here in my old soul, I was trying to get away from like the
I'm crying.
technology, and then she would be sitting next to me, all excited. Oh my god, this is free, and I'm like,
You did it.
oh my god.
And she's like, why did I end up sitting right there?
um but that's an evolution. And the other thing too that's a blessing when you're working with people closely that are very different from you is that when you do learn to see, hey, this is their strength, you release. It's like you learn to release certain things, like, oh, they're so good at that, I really trust the way they do that. It's not that you can't have input or perspective, but like you learn to let go of the areas that they're so easy at, or even depend on them for that. Like when we had our shop, there were situations within the shop or working with certain characters that she was better at handling, not me. and then
Or
vice versa, you know, and we knew that, like, we didn't even have to look at each other. It was almost like we would do we're so close. It was just like little subtle communication,
And then
and we just knew.
the other
Yeah.
sister would excuse themselves and let, if it was me or her, like either she would leave and I would deal with the person or the other way around.
Vice
Like
versa.
we just knew that it's like, okay, this is
It's like, all right, time for me to bow out, and she's gonna take care of it. And the same thing too with our like clients and community. Like, some people would prefer to, meet with my sister or meet with me because maybe what they were going through in the moment, they needed her type of vibe and character and the way she works. Maybe they need it with me, right? So it's one of those things where it working together within the shop or as entrepreneurs, and just as entrepreneurs, no matter where you work, what it is, there's so many constant lessons in terms of how you got to navigate relationships. And honestly, this has been, well, the relationship with yourself is always the most important one, but this has been a very important one because we're not just sisters. We have all these other ways that we
lives
have
are
to
so
work
intertwined as we
together.
indicated in the beginning of
Exactly.
the video. And as you can imagine, like attracts like. So a lot of the conversations that we would have privately with people were about exploring these kinds of relationships and being honest. And I think that something that has worked to our success is that we share candidly. We've always been candid with everybody in our shop that when Botanical was open, we were very different in nature and character, and that the way we would approach something or maybe even receive messages might even be different. But in
Absolutely.
all of those differences, sometimes we're getting to the same exact place and the very same exact conclusions.
Mhm.
And
And that's the way it should be, mi gente. Like, all this going back to what we said at the beginning, joking over the word canceling, like, or that comes up in our culture and our society these days so much. Like, it doesn't make sense because we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to.
we're not supposed to be little robots the
Hey,
same.
and we all have our strengths, our blessings, and the way that we, receive, and also the way we give. It's so unique to you, and that should be celebrated. And we should push ourselves to learn how to work with one another rather than just like stepping back or shutting the door, because then there's no growth there.
And right now, mi gente, we haven't forgotten that the homework last week
Yeah.
was try one new thing. And oh, your one new thing that you tried last week. I just put my sister on the
Oh my
spot.
God. I'm suffering from like viejita syndrome, so I'm like forgetting. Oh my God. What did I
I'll say that
last week?
maybe, or for me, it was more about like there are certain things that happen that create anxiety for me, where I'll naturally just want to like, especially when it's good stuff.
Okay.
I don't know how to handle the frequency or the news that I almost want to run away and be under the covers and not deal with reality for a while. And this is when she comes into my picture really strongly because then she's like, just say yes, just say yes, just say yes. So that has been something I have been practicing more of to just say, I'm saying yes to more goodness.
Well, I think what I was practicing last week um, was just, and this is not necessarily a new thing, but it's not always an easy thing, which it was just to, in the midst of so many things going on, um, stopping to be very conscious about gratitude. Like I remember like last week though, I would say one of the biggest conversations I kept having with myself. I could be walking down the street. If you were to see me walking, you may even see me chatting. Sometimes it's just me chatting with myself, you know. And a big thing was just what was helping me manage the overwhelm of the last week, because just there's so many things happening in within the last week that was just really like, I was so, I felt so stressed in my being, I just kept stopping to be like, I'm really grateful for, trying to look at the particular situation and find what I'm grateful for. And not just within the situation, but that I was able to participate or be of help. So I was just trying to work with gratitude, from two particular angles, and to be consistent. And again, it may not be like a new practice for me, but it is what I find one of those practices. And my sister, maybe one day we'll talk about it even more, because she's created gratitude practices for many years. One thing you'll learn when you're working with that vibration and that intention is that it's actually big, and there's so many components, there's so many ways to look at gratitude. It's not just waking up and saying thank you God, I'm grateful for my life, and this and those things are do matter, and they make a difference, but it goes so much deeper. So I feel like last week it was just working with gratitude from two or three different angles, and to be consistent with it, especially in the moments that I felt very overwhelmed. And so that was like definitely the thing that I would share was my homework. So if any of you did any little homework, or one thing that was new, or something that you just kept like really trying to implement, please comment, share with the comunidad.
That's
This is how we influence and support one another, and just be real. It's like my sister was saying, like in the beginning of this video, when we were talking about if you suffer from, resting bitch face or something like that, like if you recognize something about yourself that you don't really love, like she said, okay, laugh about it. I love that you said that, because part of our journey to shift anything that we would love to be better at, or to release, or to heal, first we got to recognize it. Like first we got to know, and sometimes that's can be the hardest part, is even getting to that place. So it's like I just want to like reiterate, like don't beat yourself up when it's like something that you realize, oh man, I haven't learned that, or wow, I'm really bad at that, or wow, I'm really like I haven't figured that out yet. Like,
I fell into this wagon again.
Right. It's like again. But you know what? This is what we're here to do. We're learning, and if you're recognized it, that's already a fantastic place to start.
That's right. We're in this big human school together. And I do have a homework suggestion for this week.
Okay.
Are you ready? We're going to do this together for those who are listening. Take a deep breath in, exhale. And at this time, let's go on this visualization trip together. I would like us to tune in and go inside and think about things that you are bringing into your field that make you smile, excitement, that fill your soul. Maybe you've been working on a hard project and you don't know quite how to finish it, but right now you have all the ways, all of the colors, exactly where that painting is gonna sit. Or if you're an independent artist and you write music, maybe you're performing in the venue of your dreams. If you are a student and you are, finishing in classes or waiting for your results, you're like, you know what? I keep getting better and better every day, and I keep attracting more goodness every day, and amazing opportunities and wellness and smiles, and everywhere I go, there's kindness, and that opens up to me and kind opportunities, and I meet like-minded people, and it's those things that we can continue to do together and lock into this amazing circle of resonance and just bring in more goodness. So take a deep breath in.
I mean, remember, family, if your mind sees it, we're really powerful manifestors visually. So if you can really train yourself to see those things, like she said, that just fill you, that excite you, that energize you, it's not only healing and motivating, but it really, really, truly helps to create it. And as we like begin to close out, I'll share a quick little story um, with that very point about the mental preparation and also connecting Mother's Day that's coming up on Sunday. So my first pregnancy, um, I was called to follow a natural birthing path, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I just did all the prep that you probably could, read all the books, ate, first pregnancy, so you're a little neurotic, ate perfect diet. I was seeing my midwives, I went to, birthing classes, all of that. But I will say, out of all those things, and all those things were beautiful, and I was so blessed with my whole experience. But I will say the one powerful thing that helped me on the day when I literally gave birth to my son was that I had taken a class, actually going full circle when I was working in Viacom, VH1, the time that I was also working there too. That's when I was pregnant. They held a class where the teacher spoke about mentally preparing yourself. She's like, the most important thing you could do is see yourself every day, see yourself every night giving birth, and how it was going to go, exactly like my sister was saying, like see yourself, like what is it that you want to accomplish, the way you want that day to go, like see yourself pushing the baby, holding the baby's healthy, you're doing a great job, you're getting through it, like visualize all those details, like the way my sister was saying, visualize that the colors, that you finally got the colors to your painting, like see it almost in the way that you really genuinely feel it in a physical way. And so what I did every night, every single night after that, without skipping, I would fall asleep envisioning what my labor would look like. And I would envision the same thing every single night. And guess what? I credit that to be the number one thing that helped me get through managing the intense pain of labor. Wow. During giving birth to my child. And that was like, when they say, sometimes hearing it, you don't always believe it, but when you experience it, I was a true believer after that. True believer, true believer of how powerful um, mentally believing and thinking and crafting all the details, how supportive that is in being able to physically experience exactly what you were thinking. And, going through that, oh, forget it. I was just like, thank you, universe, God, for that beautiful lesson and guidance. So, yeah, that's a really beautiful practice. If you've never done it, try it. And even if it's with little things.
Yeah. We're powerful human beings, and don't don't get too distracted. Remember to cultivate the rich land that lives within you.
Oh, man,
Right?
because we are rich within this
That's
body.
right.
Sacred lands, sacred lands.
So
And
to wrap up, I just want to say a couple things.
yes.
Happy Mother's Day to you, to Mama, to every Mama Bear that's
Say
out there.
mommy, right.
And
Mommies, listen, your job is probably the most important job on this earth, period, with capital 3 T's.
mhm,
And like so many people say, anyone that mothers, so there's, it's like we were in a working yesterday, and one of the speakers, mentioned that sometimes you have your spiritual children, right? Sometimes it's not the physical ones, but you're still in a place of mothering because it takes a village. So first and foremost, to all the mommies in the world, but to anyone that's in that position, thank you so much. It is the most
yes,
important job.
deep down.
And my gosh, I'm so grateful to have been blessed by it. My children are my greatest teachers. They always say that we're the ones to teach them, but honestly, I laugh because I'm like, they're really my biggest teachers. And I'm so grateful to, and also my biggest gifts. So happy Mother's Day to all you mommies out there.
Salud.
Saludo. And to just end, we just want to end with a gratitude to anyone that subscribed to join our channel, that, you know, send us a lot of well wishes in the messages. It was so
Thank
great
you.
chatting back and
We
forth.
love to read your comments. Please keep them going. And a special shout out to Michael Kane, Teachers for Choice. We were up in Albany doing our community duties. via Capacito Break, and also as constituents, and
right.
also as advocates for children's health defense.
Amen. And we will cover that, share about those parts of what we do more in future videos. So look out for those.
Yeah, we love you guys. Thank you again for tuning in.
We love
I gotta
chatting with
continue
you.
drinking my lemonade.
Ciao.